I'm Richard Charles Lawrence, and ever since I was a little boy, I've been fascinated by a country far, far away. It's a country whose culture I've absorbed through films, through music, through comic books and through fashion. And although I've talked and talked about coming here for years, I've never actually made it past that point. But now the time for talking has stopped, so I've grabbed myself a mate and I've finally made it. I've finally come to Japan. Now there's 1,000,001 YouTube videos out there on Japan, and that's something we're very conscious of. So what we didn't want to do was to bring you more of the same thing. More of the dazzling lights of Tokyo, more of the vending machines, more of the capsule toys that are everywhere. What we wanted to do was bring you the unpolished version, the honest version, something that's going to help you on your trip. Starting with the Shinkansen, or as you may know it, the bullet train. This 200-mile-an-hour rail network effectively makes Japan much smaller for the traveller, as it connects together the major hubs.
So just waiting for our Shinkansen or bullet train going to Osaka to Tokyo. It's about the same distance as Newcastle to London. We're going to do it in just over 2 hours. This train that we're on is delayed by about 5 minutes, which obviously isn't that common, but hey, it's just 5 minutes. I heard quite a few people say about when you get the bullet train, you can't take luggage on board. It's not actually true, you can. We've got quite a lot of luggage here. We don't have to book an extra space for it. If you've got an absolutely massive case, then you can book like some extra little luggage space for it. So don't be too worried about that. I think actually it's pulling in now, so all the best.
Now the four-leaf clover you can see on that carriage means that it's a green car, and it has within it what they call green seats. These are business class seats, which give you a little bit more room and a little bit more comfort. These only cost about an extra £20, but as we were only using the Shinkansen a few times on our trip, we thought it was worthwhile. But the normal carriages are excellent as well if you're on a budget. As with all train travel, it gives you an incredible opportunity to see much more of the country. And it's only 2 hours for us to go from Tokyo to Osaka. So it's a great time to see a little bit more of the countryside. Or on the other hand, if you've got a tiring trip, you could just kick back and have a little doss. Kyoto. This is a place where, in the imagination, it represents the ancient and mythical side of Japan. And it's a place where you can still see some of those traditional, older buildings because it wasn't bombed out in the war. In the imagination, it's a place of geishas, kimonos, winding little streets. And for a great many people, and a great many people seem to come here, it represents the essence of Japan.
Okay, so Kyoto's a place of temples, right? So we're going to see if it's worth coming to this one. This is the Osaka Pagoda, not the Bakayo Osaka Pagoda, and not the Osaka Shrine either, so make sure you know where you're coming if you're going to come here. We don't know, but looking over my shoulder, it seems like it probably is worth a visit. It looks absolutely spectacular.
Now, Kyoto was the place that I was most looking forward to before I came. And this is because, again, for me, it seemed to be what was reflected from the Akira Kurosawa films that I watched growing up. And it seemed to sort of reflect that Japan. But there is a little bit here of Instagram versus reality. When you come here, you're probably going to see a lot of tourists. And hey, we were tourists too. But if what you're expecting is that really ancient film set type Japan, probably isn't going to quite be like that. You will see a lot of European tourists dressed up in the kimonos. But it's not just those parts that are ancient, it's also a modern city. So it's perhaps not quite like you might appreciate. When it comes to visiting those old sites like the temples, a friend of mine before I came said, well, they're all a bit samey. And that seemed a bit sacrilegious at the time. But actually, it might make sense for you to ration your visits to these temples, just so that you can spend a little bit more time at one and get the most out of it. Your time in Japan is precious, so you don't really want to run all over Kyoto collecting temples like they're some kind of Pokemon. It is controversial, but they are all quite similar. So it makes more sense to do some research and spend more time at one.
Right, so we're just up from Osaka Pagoda,
And we didn't know this was here, in fairness, but it just so happened that while we were going around the back, we saw this absolutely enormous statue. And I've got quite a thing about big statues. I don't know if it's because I was raised as a Protestant, so I've got some kind of revulsion of big idols, but at the same time, I'm really attracted to them, and yet also think that they're a bit creepy. This one's a little bit different though, because as we got here, and we read the little bit of bump that they gave us about it, it's actually effectively like a tomb of the unknown soldier from World War II. So clearly it takes on quite a different kind of character because of that. It doesn't feel like a kind of dour, solemn place, though, I have to say. It does seem like quite a sort of serene place. And it's all completely overlooked by this enormous figure of the Daikanon, which is that of mercy and compassion. It really is quite a space, and one of those great things that you find when you're actually looking for something else. All right, Nishiki Market in Kyoto, Japan. One of the things we want to work out is it actually worth coming as part of your visit? It is quite busy. That being said, it is 10:30 and it's May and it's on a Tuesday, so we were hoping it wouldn't be too much so, but yeah, there's a lot of tourists, but we're going to work out, is it worth coming?
Nishiki Market is over 400 years old, which makes it one of Japan's oldest markets. And what it's really famous for is its food, and particularly its fresh seafood. In fact, if it comes out of the ocean, you're probably going to see it for sale here. But it's not just a feast for the stomach, it's also a feast for the eyes. And it's a bustling, vibrant, colourful kind of place. If you do come here though, there's only really one way to get involved, and that's to go for it and try some food. So, here goes.
One of these, please.
One?
Yeah.
Okay. How about one more number one popular star?
No, sorry, just this one,
Just
yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Okay. 1,000. Please go back. Thank you.
If you want to wish you in the really
To be honest, now it's cooked, it looks a little less daunting. I think the chili powder was a good move. The suckers are a little off-putting, but good.
Is it fishy?
No, it's octopusy.
And that's really only the way to describe it. But if big fat octopus tentacles aren't really your thing, then you'll be pleased to know you can get some more familiar food there as well.
Right, so Nishiki Market, is it worth coming here on your trip to Kyoto? Well, if you've seen the film Blade Runner, there's a bit where he's in a market and there's like an ostrich going through. It's a little bit like that. It's very, very long and it's quite narrow. And even on a Tuesday in May, there is a lot of people there. Having said that, it is an experience. And what we found from the food that we had, it was all excellent. Particularly that little bit of A5 Kobe beef, which I haven't got very good taste buds. I can't tell the difference between one thing and another, but it's a texture, it just completely melts in your mouth. Definitely, I'd say you need to try for that. And some of the other things that we got, I had a big octopus tentacle. That was actually very good too. And just generally speaking, there's a kind of vibe in there that you maybe wouldn't get in some other places. It's a market at the end of the day, like we all know, but there's something very special about it. So I'd say 100% it's worth a little visit. Okay, so is it worth going to Kyoto? Well, we've been to Nishiki Market, we've been to the pavilion, we've been all around the place. What we found is that those places that people say are touristy are probably touristy for a reason, because they're actually really quite good. Now, we've come on a Tuesday and it hasn't been too busy. I imagine, to be fair, on the weekend, it's probably very, very heavy. But I think if you come in the midweek, you can have a great time around the touristy places because they are really beautiful. And we also got a little bit of good luck with seeing that enormous Buddha as well with that memorial. So I think it's a fantastic place, something to look forward to.
Osaka. Osaka is the third largest city in Japan after Tokyo and Yokohama, and it's a very common place for tourists to visit as it's only 2 hours away from Tokyo by Shinkansen. We headed out to Dotonbori, which is probably something that everybody that visits Osaka will do. Again, you can see that it's a very vibrant place, but we found that the atmosphere here was slightly different to Tokyo. It's still like Japan, It still feels super safe, you still feel super friendly, but there's almost something more youthful and exciting about Osaka we found. We also found out that the locals are very well known for their sense of humour, and I think that really shines through in the place.
How you doing?
If I'd known that that young lady was asking me how I was doing, of course I would have replied. One of the things about Dotonbori is the street food, so that's where we headed after arriving here.
So we're in Dotonbori. We've come into this district in Osaka. This is our first night, and we came here really just because, well, we got hungry and we heard this is the place to come. So what we've done is really we wanted some street food rather than sit in a restaurant, because this is what this place is famous for. So we just come to this little stand. This is some king crab that we found from a really lovely Turkish guy who's selling it on the street. We're just about to dive in and taste it, but I mean it looks great. So let's have it. How do you eat it? You just dive in, right?
Pick it up.
Yep. Right, let's try this. It's really nice taste. It's not too strong either. I thought it might be quite rich, but it's really, really nice taste. Obviously very fresh as well, which makes a massive difference, doesn't it? That's lovely.
This is the Running Man in Dotonbori, and it's been there since 1935, so you always see lots of people gathered around taking pictures of it. But at this point, it's raining pretty hard, so we're doing what English people always do, we're going to the pub.
Okay, so we just come out of the rain here in Dotonbori. It's a Wednesday, it's quite warm and it's absolutely packed out there. But as you know, because it's Japan, there's no feeling of intensity in the crowd or kind of menace or anything like that. It's all fairly good vibes, I must say. And all we want to know for now is it a place that you want to head if you come to Osaka, or do you want to come to Osaka even? So, cheers. Okay, so here we are in Donzabari, and we're in a fantastic bar here. It's bar Dull Boy with my man Daisuke, of course, who's an absolutely amazing barman. He's making for us some fantastic Japanese drinks here called sochi.
Sochu.
Sochu. These are sochu. And he's making us some absolutely fantastic drinks here. This is lemon and lime from sochu. And this is my man Daisuke. So I'm really, really grateful for this guy. This is what it's about, being in Osaka, being done about. This is all about it. So many, many thanks.
For both of us, it was the people who made Japan. And a really good example of that is Daisuke. We spent all evening with him, chatting, he made us some beautiful drinks, we showed each other tunes on YouTube, and all in all, he was an exceptional host. We talk about him a lot since we came back, and what a fabulous guy he was. So he's the owner of Bar Dull Boy. If you're in Dotonbori, you simply must go and see this guy. He's absolutely fabulous. And now for something completely different. Universal Studios Japan in Osaka. One of the things we wanted to do on our trip was get a lot of variety. So this is where we've headed. You may be familiar with the Universal Studios in California and in Florida, but they've put one here too. Now, it might seem strange to see such a bold Western cultural phenomenon out here in Japan, but there's been a cultural exchange between the West and Japan for decades now. Certainly since Astro Boy was influenced by Disney cartoons, and then in turn Miyazaki influenced them back. But what can we say about this? It's not somewhere I would normally come. But there's people having fun everywhere, and the customer service and friendliness of the staff has to be seen to be believed. Everywhere you look, there's people screaming on roller coasters, enjoying themselves and having a great time. And that can't be a bad thing. Apparently these are minions and they have a happy kitchen. Probably the biggest attraction of people coming here is this, Super Nintendo World. Now, even though it's right inside Universal Studios, I should warn you that you do need to get a separate ticket for it, and you need to queue up separately too, which is a little bit of a pain. But Nintendo is iconically Japanese, so it's kind of the point of coming here, really. Now, when you're inside here, it's like being inside the game. It's very odd. and there's all sort of animatronic Super Mario characters here. And perhaps the main attraction is Bowser's Castle, where you can take him on in Super Mario Kart.
Okay, so that's our day finished in Universal Studios Japan, which is in Osaka. Probably need more than a day if you wanted to see the whole thing for sure. It's very, very big. We came on Thursday because it's meant to be a bit quieter. I'm sure it was, but there was times when it was very, very busy. We came at the end of May, and there's times when it was very, very hot as well. It's lovely now, actually. It's almost a perfect evening. So that's probably something to bear in mind. Massive amounts of fun in there, no question. Just one thing that we did find is that if you've got a friend who comes with you who's maybe 6'3" and quite a big guy, then he might struggle a little bit to get into the rides. I think if you were bigger than that, because he's not freakishly big, if you're like 6'5", you're like Sam Burgess size, then you probably struggle with a few of them. One of the things that kind of blew us all away, I think, was just how enthusiastic and polite all the staff were. And to be even waiting in line when it's full of, kind of just the Japanese people, it's always fascinating and it's always a pleasant experience, I find. So maybe not let the queues put you off too much. But generally speaking, it was a pretty amazing experience. I can't believe they built something this big here, but that's how it is. Fantastic. Okay, so we've come to Sendai today in northern Japan. You can tell it's northern because the weather is like Manchester, but it's about 10 degrees cooler or 15 degrees cooler than we've been used to down in Tokyo and Osaka. But it's a fantastic feel here. Not many tourists come here. In fact, we're the only tourists we've seen pretty much. But there is a reason we've come here, and it's because there's a statue here that was once the tallest statue in the world, and it's still pretty massive, and it's just behind me, and it's called the Sendai Daikonen. In particular, why we liked it so much is because it has a kind of Godzilla feel to it, in that it's amongst all of the power lines, and it kind of looms out of the sky, which is of a similar colour, so it kind of seems like it's about to conquer the town. A bit ironic really, because the Daikonen is the bodhisattva of mercy and compassion. And what is quite incredible is that it's been here since '91, and it's still shining white in the distance there. We're pretty awed actually by how big it is. It's the kind of thing that you're driving along in our little rental car, and then you just suddenly get a shock as you see this face looming out of the sky. It really is quite an incredible spectacle, and just the whole experience of coming to Sendai with it not being touristy is really quite something. So it's definitely worth doing something out of the ordinary, off the beaten track.
All right, so as you move around the Sendai Daikonen statue, you get kind of a completely different perspective on it, depending on how you look at it. Like, it's always massive and it's always kind of awesome against the landscape, but we've been moving around it to different views, partly to get sort of, some good shots, some good photography, but also to kind of experience it in a different way. And as we've been studying it probably the last half hour, because the weather is changing behind it, you can see the mist rising from the mountains, and it makes it look, I don't know, it's quite hard to describe. It's almost like it's more ethereal, more ephemeral, even though it's an enormous, great, heavy object right there in the sky. The fact that he's made it white like that, the businessman who created it, who is redeveloping the area, it's very, very clever how they've done it. Like, I'm trying to contemplate here how you go from the idea, let's make an absolutely enormous statue because we want to represent an expression of the Buddhist faith. Let's take it to the drawing board. Now let's plan it. Now let's actually construct it, and then let's execute it. And what they've been left with is not just this incredible thing on the landscape, but it's also entered the consciousness of the people around here to the extent that for many, they kind of take it for granted. And it's like, well, how would you live in a place where you take for granted a 120-meter tall statue of a bodhisattva? It's kind of interesting, that whole process. It's obviously been here for quite a long time now, sort of 30 years or so. But for us, seeing it for the first time in the flesh or in the stone, so to speak, really is quite a strange experience, really. We've been quite fortunate that we've seen a number of different weather states since we got here. It was raining, it was drizzly, now it's lifting, it was cold, now it's warmer, and we've seen the mist rising from the mountains as we go, and it's given it all a slightly different aspect and a slightly different nature. It's really interesting. It's just one object in the sky, really, but because I think it's probably made by humans and it's an artifact, then it has a quality all of its own. Okay, so we've decided to do a little bit of driving while we're in Japan, and our thinking about it was this. So you imagine, for example, you want to go to the UK. So you'll go to London, won't you? You'll probably go and see Buckingham Palace and all that kind of stuff. But hey, you might not get out to the real England, you know what I mean? Like Warrington, Wigan, Carlisle, maybe. And what we wanted to do was see somewhere that not everybody was going to go to. So we went to Sendai and we saw the Sendai Daikonen, this massive statue. We were the only, Western tourists there. It was a real experience. And also driving was as well. But I understand that there's a little bit of anxiety maybe over driving in Japan and how you do that. So, in terms of what we went through, it was actually fairly simple. We're from the UK. What we needed to do was get one of these international driving permits. Again, it's like a £5 to buy, and you just go along to like a corner shop, believe it or not, because they don't do it at the post office anymore. Participate in corner shop. I drove around a few estates and found one. And you take your passport photos in and they go and snip it all for you and they stamp it. I've got to say, it doesn't seem like very official when you do it, but it is all legit, as we found out. So then we went to book a car on the web when we got here. We went to the little office. There was a couple of guys in there, really, really young looking, baseball caps, Japanese lads, polo shirts done up to the top, sort of in a hip hop style. They were really, really nice. Took copies of all our stuff and then they were able to get us on their road. I'm not entirely sure if they were having a laugh. I'll tell you why, because they gave us this bad boy, the pink mobile. They're probably laughing in there right now, thinking of us driving with this thing. One little detail, which I'm particularly keen on, is it's got a nice little love heart at the back. Thanks for that, boys. It's probably got about 80 brake horsepower, judging by the sound of the engine, but it did the job. One of the good things about it is, in all seriousness, it is quite small. And what we found is that a lot of the Japanese roads, particularly in Tokyo, for example, but also elsewhere, are pretty small, which is why they all drive around in these little dinky noddy cars. So it makes a lot of sense to get hold of a small car. Service stations are excellent. When it comes to driving, if you're from the UK, you're used to driving on the left anyway, because they drive on the left in Japan. You're used to steering wheel being on the right-hand side of the car, so that's all hunky-dory. But even if you're from a country where they drive on the right, probably won't take you a huge amount of time to get adjusted. We've found in general that everything is super logical on the roads. There is probably actually just one thing that's worth bearing in mind, and that's these ETC cards. So a lot of the roads are toll roads. What you can do when you hire your car is you can buy an ETC card, and they just set that up in the car for you. You put down like a 10,000 yen deposit or whatever. What it means is that every time you drive up to a toll barrier, it will automatically open for you because you got one of these cards. The alternate is that every time you come up to the barrier, you got to put your cash in or use your credit card or whatever, which could be a little bit of a nose, I think, if you were going through a lot of these toll roads. For us, it's been really, really easy. And as soon as we got about, a few miles, we thought, do you know what? This was a really good decision getting this. So that's a bit of a good tip, I think. In general, I'd say if you're looking at getting a car in Japan, for all means, go for it. I can totally understand that there'll be some anxieties around it, but actually we found that it's pretty straightforward. So yeah, why not go for it? Alright, so one of the things that we've not seen in any videos talking about Tokyo or Japan is the smoking situation. Now, I don't smoke because cigarette smoker, that's not me, but my travel buddy does. So it's going to require a little bit of planning because in Tokyo you can't smoke anywhere on the street at all. If you do smoke on the street, you might be liable to £1,000 fine. Now that's only £5.50. So if you're from the UK, you might say, well, so what, mate? I'll just do it and pay the fine. But here's the thing, it's socially unacceptable to do so, which means obviously that we're not going to do it, because the fine is neither here nor there really. It's just a fact that it's socially unacceptable. So let's give us an example here. We're in our hotel in Akihabara. You can't smoke anywhere within that hotel, and you can't smoke on the street. So for us, we would have to go to Akihabara station, about a 10-minute walk, in order to find one of these booths, these smoking spaces. Another word from you might call them a cancer chamber. You might also call them a pestilence partition, perhaps a bit of a reach. But you can't just go smoking anywhere on the street. So you're probably going to need to plan that a little bit when you do come. There's one other thing as well, and that's that vaping counts as smoking, so that doesn't get you off either. Something you need to plan if you're coming to Tokyo. All right, so we've done a fairly long drive from Sendai right down here to Mount Fuji. It's not a great deal you can say about natural features because they totally speak for themselves, they just are. What you can see behind me is Mount Fuji in the failing light, and really the only thing that I can say that's useful, because it speaks for itself, is where we're seeing it from. And it's from the Arakura Sengen Jinja Shrine. Other than that, you don't need to know anything else, do you?
Mount Fuji. Iconic, serene, beautiful. Something that we had to see with our own eyes. And if you are coming to Japan, Mount Fuji is only 2 hours away from Tokyo. Now bearing that in mind, it's something that can't be missed.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of our trip now, and we're finishing it where we started in Tokyo, as you can see behind me, with that kind of endless, almost infinite cityscape. One of the things that we wanted to do over the course of the trip, and we did, was stay at a range of different places. So places to suit all kinds of different pockets. We've ended up on the high note in the expensive place, but we wanted to say a little bit about what our experience was of the different types of hotels and places that we stayed in. Because we stayed in, for example, in Osaka, we stayed in a hotel called Hotel Trusty, which is a kind of classic Japanese business person's hotel. It was about £30 a night, would you believe? And we thought it was an extremely good hotel. Very, very good. Like for that price, well, even for a much more reasonable price, we would have thought that it was a great hotel, but for that super cheap price, it was really very good. One thing that you do find, of course, is that the hotel rooms are kind of on the small side. I think you'd probably expect that. We stayed in the APA hotels, the APA hotels, a couple of times. And what we found about those is that in Tokyo, for example, you can stay near Akihabara for about £66, I think it was, a night. And you're right there. So you can walk just straight in like 5 minutes down the road. Everything that we encountered had really good amenities in the room. So if you're worried about, shampoo, your conditioner, your hairbrushes, all of that, every single type that we stayed in, from the very sort of budget to the higher end, had really good amenities. We also stayed in an Airbnb in Kyoto, like a kind of traditional type house, and that had great amenities in it as well. One thing that we found about that, and I appreciate that a lot of people will head towards Kyoto, is we stayed in a kind of traditional Japanese house. Basically, that means there's nowhere to sit down, or not sit down like I'm sitting down now. You got to sit down on the floor. If you are a bigger person, a bigger human, again, that can be quite uncomfortable. And also we found that the toilet in there, I mean, I'm not a very big person at all. I'm Japanese size, and I really could hardly fit in there. It was almost like hilarious trying to do my business in there. If you're a bigger guy than 5'7", which is what I am, which most of you will be, then that really is quite a challenge. Otherwise, what I'd say is we've had a really good experience in this particular hotel. So right in Tokyo, and it's got these unbelievable gardens, like really incredible. And the level of service that you get in here, obviously,
is of a kind that you'd expect with the various kind of price hierarchies. We had a discussion. Could you do Tokyo, for example, on a budget? We think that the resounding answer to that is yes, you certainly could. We booked our flights like 8 months before, £400 return, that's Air China. If you come to Tokyo, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't stay in an equivalent of a hotel trustee, or even the APA hotels that we had for like £66, and you'll be able to walk into a lot of the main places in the city, and then you can get the subway, and the trains are very, very cheap. You can get them everywhere. You can eat very cheaply as well if you want to. Comparing it to our experience of, say, for example, London, you can have a much, much more valuable time, but cheaper in Tokyo than you can in London. I think that's undeniable. So, don't be put off by the fact that it seems so expensive, because our experience was it really isn't. You'd spend an enormous amount more in London town than you would here. Overall, we found our experiences, the accommodation, very, very positive. You do have to sometimes get used to being in quite smaller spaces, but on the whole, I think that we're comparing it always, of course, to where we're from in the UK, and it compares extremely favourably. And I think that you can have a great time on whatever budget you choose to have.
Japan is a must-see place, and it's also on the list of the world's most safe places to travel by yourself. And one of the things which may be stopping you from going there is that you can't find anyone to go with you. But I must encourage you to consider going by yourself. And the very, very best book out there in terms of travelling by yourself is called Because No One Else Wanted to Come, and we'll put a link down below. Now, this book, apart from being hilarious, is the most practical one I've ever read on this subject. And not only does it give you fabulous tips, but it also gives you encouragement, and it talks about the emotional side of things, and it talks about how to keep your head fresh while you're there. Everything that you don't normally get in a travel book. I can't recommend this book highly enough. It's called Because No One Else Wanted to Come, link below. So that's our video on Japan, and if you made it to the end, thank you very much, it means the world to us. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you've got your own experiences to add, or maybe you're about to go to Japan, then leave a comment below, we'd love to read them. So until next time, stay safe, stay adventurous, God bless, cheerio.